Hey everybody, it's Faiz Versey and welcome. I'm a real estate salesperson in Ottawa, Ontario. I work for LePage, and today I have a very exciting seminar for you. I think you'll find it interesting, especially if you enjoy statistics. If you don't enjoy statistics, then well, stay with me as long as you can. And don't forget, if you have any questions, if at any point you stop watching and you still have some questions in your mind that were not answered, then please feel free to give me a call and we can sit and chat through your question. So, what am I talking about today? I should have mentioned that. What I'm talking about today is the state of the real estate market. Couldn't quite put that sentence together. We're talking about the state of the real estate market in Ottawa. I think you'll find it very interesting. Let's get cracking and get into this analysis. So the first graph that you'll see on your screen, as in my video on your screen, should say unit sales. So what does this graph show us? What this is showing us is that the real estate sales start sometime in January, at a certain point in January, and then build momentum. They go up till approximately May of the year, and then gradually come down again, and then reach a certain point in December, and then the cycle starts again. So basically, what can we get out of this graph? We can't get too much. Well, we can get one important point. I'll come to that. But basically, the way we'll use this graph is that we're going to superimpose it onto some other graphs as I go through this presentation, and then that will enable you to get a good idea of the overall picture of what's happening in the Ottawa real estate market. So the one item that I can bring your attention to is that this graph I call it my mountain chart. It reflects the seasonality of real estate sales in Ottawa. So we have 4 seasons, and so those 4 seasons would be, we have winter, and then we get into spring, and then we go to summer, and then to the fall. So what this means, well, it doesn't mean too much yet. As I mentioned, we'll superimpose this onto other graphs. The important thing to also see in this graph is that real estate never goes to zero. So real estate is a 24/7, 365 days activity in Ottawa. You could be buying property, you could be selling property at any time during the year. So let's carry on from here, and I'm going to skip a few graphs as I come across them because I don't think they're terribly important in terms of what I want to convey to you. I want to convey to you the gist of what you need to know in order to know what's happening in the Ottawa real estate market. So let's look, and also I don't want to let this go too long, but it still might because there's quite a bit of information to get through. But let's see how it goes. So this graph, again called unit sales, it's different. It's similar but different in the sense that it's been stretched out a bit over 3 years. So that's great. It gives us some additional information. The first takeaway is that the pattern is the same that you can see from year to year, the seasonality effect that we spoke about in the previous graph. But the other interesting thing in this graph is that if you look at the latter half of 2019, so this is, sorry, I should have mentioned this is 2017, 2018, and then this is 2019. So if you look at the latter half of 2019, you'll notice that the activity, these blue bars, which represent residential housing, the sales are higher than the corresponding period in 2018. And similarly for the red lines, which represent condominium sales, they are also higher than the corresponding period in 2018. So that's a very important point, and that's a theme that you're going to see we will develop as we continue through this presentation. What is the theme? The theme being that everything is higher this year in 2019 compared to 2018 unit sales, and then you'll see as we go along. We'll come to it. So in fact, the next graph takes us to another important component of what we're discussing, which is average sale price. Now, if you look here, the blue bar here is 2019, the red bar is 2018, the green bar is 2017. So if you can see where I'm pointing here in the left-hand corner of the screen. And as you can see, there is a gradual improvement every year, which is showing that we are, in the last 3 years, we've had a gradual increase in the average sale price. And 2019 has been quite powerful. We've had a significant increase over 2018 throughout the year. And so this is now another part of what I'm trying to explain to you, is that the prices have gone up in 2019. Anything else I can get from that graph? No, not right now. Let's carry on. So the second graph here that we'll look at is the same one as the average sale price that we just saw, but it breaks it down into residential and condominium. And you have the same pattern. You see the blue lines, which are 2019, the red lines, which are 2018. The blue lines are higher than the 2018 lines, than the red lines, which are signifying that the prices have gone up in the residential sector. That is residential. Here we go. And then we have the condo segment as well. And the condo prices are also higher. Okay. And so I should mention that for those of you who are not terribly familiar with these terms, residential and condominium, what do they mean? So residential could be a standalone house. It could be a bungalow. It could be a 2-story house with some land around it. And if you own that property, you own the building and you own the land as well. A condominium, though, could be up in the sky. And it could be down on the ground. It could be a row house type of setup. But in a condominium, you own the property as defined by the 4 walls in which you live. Beyond that, the land, it doesn't belong to you, not directly anyways. So that's actually a very interesting point, the difference between residential and condo. I'm just giving a very brief explanation now. But if any of you wanted more explanation, especially what does it mean in terms of being in terms of being a buyer or being a seller, what does the difference between residential and condo mean to you? If you give me any, if you would like to know, then please leave me with some questions, and depending on the response that I get, hopefully I'll take a look at it and maybe put out a video to explain that. So let's carry on. The next graph, very interesting graph, it's showing the average sale price, but now stretched out over 3 years. And so we can see here back in this is 2017, this is 2018, this is 2019. So if we look back at 2017, we will see that the blue line, which represents residential, a house back then cost, or the value, was approximately just under 400,000, let's say 390,000. And today that same house, its price is 490,000. So that's a pretty significant jump in 3 years, about $100,000 on a base of 390. Now, if we look at the condominiums, then the condominiums were priced at, on average, approximately, let's say 290,000 about 3 years ago. And today the average price is approximately, let's say, slightly above 300,000, 310,000. So now here's something very important. So pay attention. So what's happened here is that what you'll see here is that the increase in the price of the condominiums is not as significant as the increase in the price of the residential homes. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that we had an overhang in the condo inventory because there was overbuilding approximately back in 2012. So it's just now, this year, that a lot of that inventory has been absorbed by the market. And as a result, now, at this point in time, in 2019, we find that the condo sales have picked up dramatically and are at par or even above, meaning the price improvement is approximately at par with the residential housing and possibly even above. I think so, it's actually above the residential housing. So they're actually pumping better than the residential housing right now. And the reason for that is the inventory is quite low. So let's carry on. Now here's a very interesting graph. It says here price range by month, which month? This slides are all for the month of October 2019. And what this is showing is the sales by price in the market in Ottawa in the month of October. So what this is showing, for example, is that the bulk of the activity happened approximately in this range from 300,000 to 750,000. And I would say that's about 75% of the market. And so apart from that, below 300,000 we have some activity. Now below 200,000 I think would be very difficult to find a house in Ottawa proper. So that activity between 0 and 200,000 is potentially houses that are somewhat away from the core of Ottawa and from the immediate vicinity. Another interesting statistic here is the houses priced over $1 million. So this is very important for people who have $1 million plus houses, is that there was a sliver of activity. And so what that means is that the buying pool is less for houses above $1 million. And yeah, we can carry on now. The next graph is the average selling time, cumulative days on market. It's a very nice graph. And I'm just going to pause for a moment because I got some scratching here. And very nice graph. I really like it. But let me move to another graph that shows this phenomenon in a slightly better way, slightly easier to understand. So here again, we have it, average selling time year over year, so stretched out over 3 years. And you can see the dramatic fall in the days that is taking to sell these houses and condos, showing residential versus condominium. So for example, here in the blue line, we have that back in January of 2017, I'll need my glasses because these numbers are quite small, and it's saying that a residential house in January 17 took 103 days to sell. And now it's taking on average about 45 days. Condo back then took 139 days to sell, the average selling time for a condo, and today that average selling time is 41 days. So that bears out what I was saying, is that condos have caught up to the residential, and they're also exhibiting the similar type of characteristics in terms of increasing prices. And there's a bit more to the story, which you'll find out maybe in the next graph. We'll skip that and let's come to this one. So total active inventory at the end of the month. Yes. Okay, so this is the one, and yeah, okay, fine, we'll come to the next one. So residential and condo combined. So this is a very interesting graph. Now, the green line is 2017, the red line is 2018, and the blue line is 2019. And what this is showing is that the inventory has been dropping dramatically over the last 3 years. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the whole reason for the increase in the prices of residential housing in Ottawa. So what it's saying is we have demand here, which hasn't dropped, but supply has dropped. So what has to happen is that the prices have to rise so that these two are back in equilibrium. And that is the situation in a nutshell in Ottawa. We have demand, but declining inventory, declining available product for people to buy. And this graph breaks it down into residential and condo, and we see exactly the same effect. So we have here, for example, this whole section here is residential, and you can see the residential between 2018 and 2019, the inventory has dropped, and condo as well, the inventory has dropped from 2018 to 2019. So what does all this mean? So let me leave you with 1 or 2 points for the buyer, 1 or 2 points for the seller. For the seller, I may have to wait even for the buyer, but okay, let's talk about it now. So Mr. Buyer, here is my advice for you. It's absolutely huge. And look, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm just going to be honest. And I think that's the best way, because no point beating around the bush. If one is straightforward and honest, then no matter, even if you don't want to hear what I want to say, at least I'll be telling you the truth, and life can carry on in a positive way, because yes, you get the initial disappointment, but it's better. It saves us all a lot of time and money. So Mr. Buyer, situation is this, and especially to my friends who come in from overseas, where there's lots of bargaining culture overseas. And also over here, people try to do a lot of bargaining, which is why I'm bringing up this point. And myself, for example, a few years ago, I was in a beautiful country called Botswana. I lived there for many years. Did we have a bargaining culture in Botswana? No, I don't think so. I think pretty much it was whatever the price was displayed, you would pretty much end up buying it if you were buying that item. So now in Canada also, we don't have a bargaining mentality. What we work with in Canada is the concept of value. So as an example, if I had a used car to sell, maybe I've priced it at $10,000, and you come to me and you bargain, and yes, you might get some discount. It might get it for 9.7, but you won't get much more off that, because that's below the value of the car. Now, similarly for houses. There is a value to that house, and that value has been ascertained through a process. Maybe I won't go into that too much in detail now, but let's say it has a certain value. Let's say it's been listed at 500,000. So sometimes people ask me that, go in and go and offer 400,000 for that. I'm just giving an example. 400,000 for that property. So now that won't work in this market. So you might get something better than 500,000, and that of course is my job as a real estate salesperson, and also of my colleagues who are in Ottawa. All of us are working. If we are working for the buyer, we're looking after your best interest, and we are going to try and negotiate the best possible price. But our job is also to do this, what I'm doing right now, which is to guide you and tell you what is the state of the market. You just observed a lot of things right now. You observed low inventory, you observed the rising prices. That is reality. We have to work with that. And we can't hide our heads under a stone and imagine a different reality. This is where we are. And you're going to learn a bit more about this in a slide or two down the road. So, Mr. Buyer, your situation is grim, yes, but the situation is that's it. And when it comes to buying a property, it's your best served to be aggressive about it. And look, buying a property is a great thing. There are a lot of people who say that buying is better than renting, and I say yes, not all the time, but I would say most of the time. And so if you buy a property, you're doing well for yourself over time. And there's a huge calculation behind this. If I get time someday, or as soon as possible, I'll try to do a video on this one. But over time, you will be ahead. So when you are in this market and you're out there trying to buy a property, you will have to go about it aggressively. Now, what that means is if you see a property that you like, then you really got to go for it, because it won't be there in another week, in another 2 weeks. You'll see that in another graph that I'm going to perhaps come to. I think so, yes. Yes, I'm going to come to that. Or did I already deal with it? Did I already deal with it? No. Oh yeah, here we go. You've seen this. The average selling time has come screaming down over the last 3 years. So properties are going fast. They're going off the shelf really fast. So you've got to be very proactive, and that should be your mindset in terms of buying a property. So I hope that helped you. Look, my job is not to force you to buy a property. It's entirely your decision. But when you work with me, I have to guide you. Otherwise, what am I doing, right? So that's the story for buyers. For sellers, let me hold off for a moment. Let me see what else is coming up in the next graph, and then we'll go from there. Inventory absorption rate, very, very complicated graph. I'll need it's a good graph, but I'll need a full video just for that graph. So let me skip that. And okay, let me come to this one. Sales to inventory. So this will add a lot of perspective for sellers. And buyers, please continue to listen, because this will add a lot of perspective to your situation as well. So what this is saying here is that, so again, we got 3 years, 2017, 2018, 2019. Back in 2017, we were in something called a buyer's market. And then we went to a balanced market. And now in 2019, we're in a seller's market. I'll describe that in a moment. And we are well into the seller's market. And so here is a situation. Let me just point out something before I describe what's a seller's market. We've got the blue lines, which represent residential. And then we've got the red lines, which represent condo. And you can see the condo is further ahead of the residential in respect of being in a seller's market. And that's what, as I explained to you, we've burnt off this inventory that we had through the overbuilding. And so now the conditions are just as tight in the condo market, even tighter. There we go, because you can see that in this graph. So that exactly is what is a seller's market. A seller's market is when the inventory of homes is less in this year compared to the previous years. So what's happening now is that sellers are driving the market. So we'll talk about that. So Mr. Seller, what's the situation for you? The situation for you is that it's a good situation. And you can demand a good price, but you have to be very careful with that. And now, I hope I'm not going to be, I'm going to bring myself, meaning a real estate salesperson, into the picture, because we are an integral part of this whole market. I'm not trying to plug myself too much, a little bit, yes, but my apologies. I don't want to sound like I'm plugging myself, but I do have to bring myself into the picture, because when it comes to pricing a home, you have to be very careful about it. How will you know the right price? I'm afraid the only way you'll know is by involving a real estate salesperson such as myself or any of my colleagues in Ottawa, because we are trained in this profession. We understand these figures. We understand the market. That's our job, to come up with a price that will work. So that's about one of the topics, one of the advices that I can leave the sellers with. Let's see what else. Okay, I think this is it. This was the very last slide that I wanted to cover, and I hope that all of you have got the picture now that where are we in Ottawa in November. Well, this figures as of October. This is the latest figures. In November of 2019, we are in a hot market where the prices are rising, the inventory is low, and that's the situation in Ottawa. So I hope you found that useful. If I can add one more plug, sorry, for myself, is that if you have anything you'd like to, you have a real estate consideration that you're dealing with and you need help, either you're a seller or you're a buyer, please feel free to give me a call, and either I'll come and see you or you'll come to my office. I'll be delighted to have an initial consultation with you to see how I may be of help. So before I go, let me also just remind all of you that, look, I've thrown a lot of stuff at you, I know, and if you have any questions, please feel free to note them down. I'm going to say below, but I don't know exactly where this video is going to be uploaded, but if there's space, put your questions. I'll answer as many as I can. What else? Oh yes, if there's a subscribe button, please subscribe. I hope so, that I will be able to put out some more educational videos on the topic of real estate. And what else? I can't think of anything. Oh yeah, if there's a like button or something like that, if you like the video, please, I would really appreciate if you gave me a like. That would be great. And I think pretty much that brings me to the end of everything that I would like to say at this time. So my friends, until I see you again, take care. Bye-bye.